49ers Colts showdown Monday night. We actually have the Colts injury report. DeForest Buckner officially back from injured reserve. Got the stem cell treatment in his neck. The former 49er will be out there on Monday night. So that's obviously going to be something for San Francisco to take care of. Alec Pierce, the receiver, this was expected. He was a full participant at Colts practice. He's a good player. Runs a 4.3 40, 6'3", could block downfield. This is a very, very versatile Colts offense. It's going to be up to Phillip Rivers to tie it all together. No action on Monday, though, for Sauce Gardner. Out again with a calf injury, and the Colts season really started going south right around the time of that trade deadline where they sent 2 first-round picks to the Jets for Sauce Gardner. They're not going to have either of their top 2 cornerbacks in this game against the 49ers. Sauce and Charvarius Ward, who has had 3 concussions this year, the former 49er, will not be available. So the Colts did not a good pass defense to begin with. They're a very good run defense. Number 21 against the pass. I think there may be some vulnerabilities for the 49ers to exploit on the back end. Anyway, we got to get to Robert Saleh, and what he said the other day made me very happy because I see so much misreading of NFL statistics because people are so focused on fantasy football, raw, simple statistics. A good example is Matthew Stafford. He's not the best quarterback in the league, but people point to the fact that he has the most passing yards in the league, saying that he's had statistically the best season, which just isn't the case. Somebody like Brock Purdy hasn't had enough chances to have that many passing yards because he's been out with the turf toe injury. But on a per-snap basis, Purdy has actually been better than Matthew Stafford. And I'm going to go into that, but I want to talk about efficiency, and I want to talk about the fact that raw yardage is just not a smart way to evaluate football. That's why I'm really happy that Robert Saleh said this yesterday.
I gave up on yardage a long time ago, and it's about winning football games, keeping points down, doing whatever you can from a schematic standpoint and a play calling standpoint to make sure that the other team's not in the end zone. And if it means you give up yards, then so be it. So.
Best example recently that I can think of was that game against the Arizona Cardinals where Jacoby Brissett had, 453 passing yards, and everybody was freaking out on the outside saying, oh, this was a bad game from the 49ers defense. And the first thing I said was, no, this was actually a good game for the 49ers defense, especially considering the fact that they were down to 3 defensive ends for most of it. I think that's where Robert Beal Jr. suffered a concussion. They allowed a lot of that passing yardage intentionally. As you just heard Robert Saleh say, you got to get a win. You have to limit points. And if that means giving up some yardage because you schematically are going to allow that yardage in order to not give up as many points, so be it. In that game against the Cardinals, the 49ers wanted Arizona to bleed out the clock on themselves. San Francisco jumped out to a lead with Sky Moore's kick return, the immediate touchdown. Brock Purdy to George Kittle on the canned play on the second drive for the 49ers. They got out to a lead. They realized that they were shorthanded defensively, and they realized that Arizona would not be able to catch them if they shortened the game. That meant less possessions for the Cardinals. Well, one way to shorten the game is to hog the ball. The 49ers did that against the Cardinals successfully. But how would they shorten the game with their defense if it was shorthanded? The answer was playing a shell defense, allowing yardage in front of them, but not allowing any throws over the top. So the 49ers intentionally allowed the Cardinals to complete passes in front of them. They were okay with long drives that took up a lot of time as long as those drives were not efficient, especially relative to the clock. Because the 49ers were ahead, they realized that they had this luxury. What they couldn't afford was explosive plays that could get the Cardinals back into the game. So on a per snap basis, Jacoby Brissett in that game was actually negative efficiency. He had 450 yards. He set some record yardage-wise for the Cardinals. I forgot. Oh, completions. He set an NFL record in completions in that game. Yet it was still a bad offensive game and a good defensive game for the 49ers. Everything needs to be evaluated within the context of points and the goal of winning that football game. And in that particular game, with how the 49ers were playing offensively, that was the best path to victory, especially when you also consider the 49ers injury situation on the defensive side of the ball. You go to the other side of the football offense, and this is where we could talk about Brock Purdy, and we can't forget the fact that Brock this season is now number 2 in QBR. So everybody's talking about Matthew Stafford right now and 4,100 passing yards, and they don't seem to be talking all that much about the fact that the Rams went scoreless in 5 straight possessions over the fourth quarter with the 1 seed on the line Thursday night. They don't seem to be talking as much about the choke job from the Rams offense, but 3 straight 3-and-outs in that fourth quarter with a chance to win the 1 seed if they had scored points on just one of those drives. I mean, that would have been very, very beneficial to the Rams. Anyway, raw yardage, and Matthew Stafford accumulated a ton of it, 400-plus yards of it on Thursday night. Raw yardage is not going to tell you who the best quarterback is. Raw yardage does not account for leverage plays and definitely does not broadcast or reflect efficiency. Probably our best way at determining who's playing quarterback at the highest level when it comes to numbers on a year in, year out basis is QBR. QBR is going to factor in a bunch of different things. This is not to be confused with passer rating. This is ESPN's metric of QBR that's going to take into account game situation. It's going to take into account down and distance. All that type of leverage is going to be factored in here. Fumbles, interceptions, touchdowns, yards per attempt, scrambling, quarterback to sack, pressure to sack ratio for quarterbacks. That's all going to be factored into QBR. After this next game that the 49ers play on Monday against the Colts, Brock Purdy probably will have enough snaps to qualify for the official QBR leaderboard. So if you go to ESPN right now, you won't see him on the leaderboard, but you can get his actual number before qualifying. It's 72.9. In 2023, Brock Purdy led the NFL with a 73-something QBR. The top number this year is Jordan Love of the Packers at 73.8. Purdy so far has been at 72.9 with the QBR. If he continues playing at a very high level, and if Love doesn't play a good game today against the Chicago Bears, well, Brock Purdy might vault into that number 1 spot and be an official qualifier for the number 1 spot in QBR at around the same score that he put up as an MVP finalist in 2023. Now, Stafford has had a good year. Nobody's saying that he hadn't had a good year, but there have been flaws to Matthew Stafford's season, and it's important that we remain objective because it seems like a lot of the media loses their minds whenever they start talking about Matthew Stafford and arm talent and this and that, and they don't recognize that he actually misses a lot of plays out on the football field and that he isn't quite as mobile as the other guys on the top 5 list, which is why he scores a little bit lower. In fact, Matthew Stafford has definitely the best situation in the NFL. If there's anybody that's being propped up by their team, it's Matthew Stafford. They've got the most efficient rushing attack in the NFL. They have a top 5 defense. He has Sean McVay. I mean, there's so much working in his favor, and then you could look at the offensive talent in Puka Nacua, in Devontae Adams, in the 3 tight ends that they're using. Every single thing that people use to denigrate Brock Purdy's numbers actually applies more to Matthew Stafford. The guy was a 10 to 15 level efficiency quarterback with the Detroit Lions, even though he had Megatron with the Detroit Lions. He goes to the Rams and he improves his numbers to the top 5, to the top 6, but he's never ranked number 1 like Brock Purdy has. He won the 1 Super Bowl in 2021 after Jaquiski Tartt dropped a short thrown interception in the NFC Championship game. He had the number 1 or number 2 defense in the league for that 2021 Super Bowl, by the way. Let's just start applying the same standards to Stafford as we apply to Brock Purdy. And I'm only using the Purdy example right now because this is a 49ers based show, and that's the quarterback that seems to be most often denigrated for what he's able to accomplish. I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into the numbers here to illustrate how raw yardage is just not the way to evaluate quarterbacks. Here's the top 5 in EPA per play. Now, what expected points added per play is going to do, it's not going to be quite as all-encompassing as QBR, but it will just look at the nuts and bolts of efficiency per drop back. Okay, so what happens every single time a quarterback drops back? Does he pick up a first down? Does he notch an explosive play? Does he throw an interception? Does he fumble? All of that is going to be put under the hood of EPA per play, expected points added per play. It's a smart way of looking at a quarterback on a down in, down out basis. Jordan Love, number 1 so far this season. Josh Allen, number 2. Brock Purdy, number 3 in EPA per play and rising. I mean, it's been a good few weeks for Brock Purdy. Drake May of the Patriots, really, really good this season. And Stafford checks in at number 5. So you ask, how can Stafford be number 5 in EPA per play despite being number 1 in passing yardage? That's the operative question. And here is the operative answer. Somebody like Brock Purdy has been better in high leverage situations. This is an XY chart that's going to show you performance on early downs, first and second downs on the x-axis, and performance on late downs, third and fourth downs on the y-axis. As you can see, Stafford, Darnold, and Goff, they've been awesome on first and second downs. That's why their dots are all the way over on the right. But this is the average line, the dotted line for third down performance, and they're right around average on third and fourth downs, which is considered the core, which are considered the quarterback's downs. Look where Brock Purdy is. He's been average on early downs, but he's been off the charts on third and fourth downs. Now, the really ironic thing here is that typically first and second downs are considered the play caller's downs. That's where stuff can be schemed up. That's where the play caller, so in Matthew Stafford's case, Sean McVay can hold Matthew Stafford's hand on first and second down. That's where Stafford is doing really well. There's a lot less hand-holding possible on third downs. That's when the quarterback has to improvise. So when the quarterback has to figure things out on his own. That's where you're going to be facing non-ideal situations, especially if you don't have a great run game. So typically, the better quarterbacks in this league perform better on third and fourth downs. Purdy has been absolutely off the charts. We can talk a little bit about his secret sauce in a second, but look who's been second on third downs. Jordan Love, who leads the league in QBR. And number 3, Josh Allen, who I think should be the leader in the MVP race. I think he's been significantly more impressive than Matthew Stafford. Allen has not had the same supporting cast as Stafford. He's not being carried as much by his teammates. Allen is the rightful MVP leader, in my opinion, at this point. Unfortunately, probably way too many people looking at simple stats. But we cannot ignore what Brock Purdy is doing, especially on third down. This completely discredits the argument that Brock Purdy is somehow propped up by his system, while somebody like Matthew Stafford is not. I mean, it's the opposite. Now, I'm one of those people that believes that you need a system for every single quarterback, which makes me a reasonable person. I'm one of those people that recognizes that football is a team sport, that without a good play caller, without a good system, there is no good quarterback, period. I mean, if it's an 11-on-11 sport, the need for people to boil this down and simplify it to a one-person job or one-person failure is patently ridiculous. Stafford would not be Stafford without Sean McVay. We have seen proof of that because I remember Matthew Stafford in Detroit. And Brock Purdy would not be Brock Purdy without Kyle Shanahan. Just like Joe Montana would not be Joe Montana without Bill Walsh. Steve Young would not be Steve Young without Mike Shanahan. It's not rocket science that this is a team sport, that this is an entire operation, which is why I love covering football, because I could sit back and I could analyze the strategy of all 22 out on the field. That's what makes this so rewarding. It's not just this one-man show in the NFL. But we have to evaluate quarterbacks for how they perform within any given system. I mean, that's the context that's really necessary here. So what if Brock Purdy is good with Kyle Shanahan? That's the goal. He needs to be good with Kyle Shanahan. Those two are responsible for putting out the best product possible. Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford are responsible for putting out the best product possible. And that product is best measured through the eyes of the quarterback position through efficiency charts like this, where you want to be further to the right and further up. This is ever since Brock Purdy has entered the league. He has been in that coveted upper right position, near a guy like Josh Allen, better than Patrick Mahomes, better than Jordan Love. I mean, it really, really is time to put the feelings away and start identifying facts. I don't care if something about Brock Purdy's draft positioning at number 262 rubs you the wrong way. I don't care if you think that he's a little too short to play the position. I don't care if you think that he doesn't have arm talent. You're wrong, by the way, if you think he doesn't have arm talent. I see outside the numbers throws, and I see extremely high deep passing completion percentage for Brock Purdy. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about actual results. I watch a lot of tape, and this matches the tape. Purdy has been extremely efficient, the most efficient quarterback in the league since joining in 2022, and he's been very accurate downfield. The x-axis measures accuracy, completion percentage above expectation. I've got a whole lot more graphs. We can go all day with this. This is a look at adjusted EPA. This one's really good because it's going to account for drops, interceptions, defensive pass interference penalties, fumbles. Purdy, with the adjusted EPA stat, it actually already ranks ahead of Jordan Love. You can see where his adjustment takes him. Love actually gets hurt by the adjustment. The dot is where the original EPA is. The quarterback's mugshot is where his adjusted EPA is. So Purdy is helped by some of these drop adjustments. Love is hurt by them. Allen is hurt by them. Prescott helped a little bit. Matthew Stafford is all the way down here, number 7? And he's hurt by his adjusted EPA. But people need to get used to it because Brock Purdy's been at the top for a few years now. Like, even in 2024, where everything kind of collapsed around Brock Purdy, he still finished number 6 or number 7 in QBR, which means that he is a high floor quarterback. The only quarterback with a comparable range of QBR ceilings and floors is Josh Allen, who's been 1 to 7, I believe. At his height, QBR number ranked number 1. At his low point, and I'm not considering Allen's first 2 years. If I considered his first 2 years, then Allen would be down in the 20s in QBR. But ever since he got good in 2020, the lowest Josh Allen has been in QBR, I think, is number 7. The lowest Purdy has ever been is number 7 in 2024. The highest he's been is number 1 in 2023. He's number 2 in QBR right now. And there's a real chance that maybe even by the end of today, Brock Purdy has the best QBR in all of football, because we're going to see the Packers and the Bears play in Chicago. I don't know what the weather conditions are, but that might impact how Jordan Love is able to deliver when it comes to efficiency. There's also one more myth that I just want to completely dispel, and maybe I'll get back to some quarterback stats in a second, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff and about how weak the 49ers schedule is. They have not played good teams over the past 4 games, and like, I think anybody with a brain has recognized that. I still remember entering the game against the Cardinals, coming out of the Rams game. I still remember saying, hey, the 49ers actually have a soft landing here for their defense. The defense can build some confidence over the next 4 games because they don't play great offenses. And this might be exactly what the 49ers need to escalate into that final December stretch where they play the Colts, the Bears, and finally the Seattle Seahawks. So it's been, very common knowledge that the past 4 games have been an easier time for the 49ers defense. But where people are getting it completely wrong is saying that the 49ers have an easy schedule overall this year just because it was a last place schedule from 2024. Well, here's a news flash. 2024 has nothing to do with 2025. In this league, especially with so much parity, bad teams can get better quickly and good teams can get worse even more quickly than that. The 49ers schedule here in 2025 actually ranks as the 4th most difficult in football by defense adjusted value over average. That is DVOA. The Cardinals, the Titans, and the Texans, 3 really tough schedules. The 49ers and the Eagles round out the top 5. So if anybody starts cherry picking the last 4 games that the 49ers have played, kindly remind them that San Francisco has gone on the road and beaten both the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams, who are 2 of the best DVOA teams of all time. They've calculated DVOA back to 1978, and the Seahawks and the Rams entered their game on Thursday night as 2 of the top 5 teams of all time. The 49ers have road wins over both of them. One of the reasons why their strength of schedule is actually so difficult. So the whole idea that San Francisco is dealing with a soft schedule this year is just patently false. And I mean, this is a whole show dedicated to facts over feelings. And I can't just let it fly when people start saying that the 49ers have an easy schedule based on no credible data whatsoever. So hopefully what I put up on the screen right there allows you to, you could take it to the water cooler at work. You could take it wherever you need to the bar. I know that it's a weekend now, so it's Saturday night. You can go check that out. Now, I have one more piece of data that I really want to show everybody. And, I said I would go into some of the secret sauce of Brock Purdy. Well, this right here, I think qualifies as secret sauce. Look at how much of an outlier Brock Purdy is. The x-axis is average time to throw, and the y-axis is completion percentage over expectation. Purdy stands alone over here on the right as far as an accurate quarterback who takes longer between snap and release. This shows you that Brock Purdy is running around, creating a lot. The 49ers have the number 24 ranked average separation number in the league. That's from their wide receivers, their tight ends, and their running backs, measured with the GPS chips in players' pads. The 49ers are not getting a lot of separation. We can go back to the absence of Brandon Ayuk probably as the root cause of that. They did much better in that regard back in 2023 when they did have Ayuk playing in his prime, when they did have the fully stocked cupboard. The past 2 seasons, it's been miserable. They ranked dead last, number 32 in separation last year, and they're in the 20s this season. So what does that mean? Well, for Brock Purdy to be efficient with the separation not being where the 49ers need it to be, he often needs to buy receivers time to get open, which is why Purdy has on average taken about 3.2 seconds to throw. The only slower quarterback in the league who runs around more is Caleb Williams. But Caleb Williams here in the bottom right is also woefully inaccurate. He's got the worst accuracy ranking, CPOE, on the y-axis in the entire league. J.J. McCarthy also doesn't get rid of the ball very quickly, and he also has a very low CPOE. But Brock Purdy is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in football while also running around a little bit. I mean, this is evocative, and I think he's better, but it's evocative of a prime Russell Wilson. That's what Brock Purdy has been able to do. He's able to escape, he's able to create, and then he's accurate when he throws downfield. Now, prime Russell Wilson was never as efficient as Brock Purdy. I don't think that prime Russell was ever number 1 in QBR. Brock is, and this should help you appreciate just how much of an outlier Brock Purdy is. He is literally creating offense for the 49ers by being as accurate as he is while buying as much time as he does. We can talk about the 10-yard split. We can talk about, and that's his elite burst, moving out of the pocket or moving within the pocket. We can talk about his excellent feel. We can talk about his downfield throwing ability. In 2023, Purdy set NFL records for his completion percentage of passes over 20 yards. This is all stuff that some of the simpletons who, just regurgitate raw stats will not tell you. They will not show you data like this. They will not watch the tape, which also shows that Brock Purdy is an outlier in so many ways. And they'll instead try to protect their egos because they can't possibly imagine going through the month of April when they're just making up names ahead of the NFL draft. They can't possibly imagine going through that month potentially being exposed for just throwing crap up against the wall because the draft is a crapshoot. But guess what? The draft is a crapshoot. Nobody noticed that Brock Purdy was going to be as good as he was. The 49ers waited, probably, I don't know how many picks they had that year, maybe 8 or 9 picks. They picked several times before they finally picked Brock at pick number 262. So even they did not realize how good he would be. But you can go back to Tom Brady. 25 years ago, he was another player who was underestimated coming out of college. There have been many. It's not all about draft positioning. And if that's why Brock Purdy doesn't get the credit that he deserves, that's the argument that you have to make. You have to go back and show that the NFL is this meritocracy where once the draft ends, doesn't matter where you were picked. You can deliver at an extremely high level, and that is exactly what we've seen out of Brock Purdy this season. That's exactly what we've seen out of Brock Purdy ever since he joined the NFL. I mean, always remember this. This is cumulative over the past 3 years, 2022, 2023, 2024, I guess 4 seasons, 2025. Brock Purdy in the upper right performance-wise for San Francisco alongside a lot of other really good names. You might ask where Matthew Stafford is here. Not in a great spot. I mean, Stafford is playing much better this season than he had over the past few. And guess what? Over the past few years, Matthew Stafford didn't have a great defense, didn't have a top 5 running game. Now, all of a sudden, he has the top running game, and he's doing a lot better. I think if we only did this for 2025, Stafford would actually not be in the upper left quadrant. He'd be in the upper right, but he wouldn't be as good as Purdy or as Josh Allen. And I think that obviously Allen has the larger sample size. Nobody's saying Purdy should win MVP this year after missing 8 games. But somebody like Josh Allen, with the QBR where it's at, let's go to our QBR rankings. Where are they? With the EPA, where Jordan Love and Josh Allen at the top. Jordan Love with the QBR where it's at. We're going to watch him tonight. I think Jordan Love is somebody that should be getting a lot more MVP consideration than a Matthew Stafford. Now, I mean, the final argument here, too, is that there's a chance that by the time this is all said and done, Stafford is the quarterback of the 3rd-place team in his division. Can you imagine? I mean, that would just go to show you the level of bias. If people still voted for somebody for MVP as the 3rd-place quarterback in his division, because I get that the vote is not scientific, that it typically has gone to the quarterback of the best team if that quarterback has good enough raw numbers. But this would really illustrate that people's brains have been broken whenever they have to discuss Matthew Stafford. He currently is not in 1st place in his own division. There's a chance he slips all the way to number 3 because the 49ers control their destiny. In fact, Stafford would be down to number 3, and the Rams would be down to number 3 if the 49ers win on Monday night. He wouldn't even be near the top of the leaderboard in quarterback efficiency. Literally, the only thing that he would lead in would be the raw statistics, which have long been shown to not really correlate with winning games. He's putting up raw stats in Detroit. It'd be like giving the MVP to Detroit level Matthew Stafford playing a great season as far as fantasy football owners are concerned there, but not paying attention to true winning football. And that's just something that I can't stand for. I think that's something that we have to actually look at facts for. We have to zero in on efficiency. We have to zero in on smart numbers. That's something I'm going to do for the entirety of my career. Just imagine where we'd be if there wasn't reasonable Brock Purdy discussion coming from somewhere. All right, I'm going to head down to the 49ers facility. It is Saturday, but it's their Friday, game on Monday. Get the 49ers injury report. They may return up to 6 starters against Indianapolis. 5 of them on defense could be very, very beneficial for the 49ers as they shoot for that number 1 seed. Thanks for watching. Robert Saleh and Brock Purdy eviscerate the simple stat worshippers. How to do it this morning. We'll talk to you soon.